you ever notice how it just keeps destroying everything in its path, but it never looks down? My name is Matthew Kroll.
And check this out. She's the monster. My name is Shahir Dowd. Welcome to the only podcast about movies.
Specifically the film Colossal.
Colossal. Great title.
It is a great title. And for a great title, we need a great guest, Shahir.
We do need a great guest. And that's why...
If only we had one right here. We do.
And that's why Skyping in all the way from down under Australia, close to my homeland, close enough that most people actually mistake me as an Australian while I'm riding the subway in New York. We've got the host of ABC's Movieland podcast, CJ Johnson, joining us all the way from Sydney. How are you, CJ?
Good morning, good evening. So you're talking when you're on the subway, are you?
I mean, you know, look, I talk to myself, and people seem to. Sometimes people are crazy enough to respond to me. Yes,
I see. When I first started listening to your podcasts, I assumed you were Australian American just because there are more Australians than New Zealanders.
That's true. That's very true. There's a very small population of New Zealanders there. But I presume that you reached out because you thought I was a New Zealander and you were bridging the Antipodean divide.
What, it couldn't be my glowing personality that people across the oceans want to just talk to us? Is that no?
I'm going to go with a no.
No, I reached out because I saw Childhood of a Leader, and then I decided I wanted to listen to people talking about it, and you were about one of the only two podcasts in the entire world to have a discussion on Childhood of a Leader.
For once, our name was almost true.
Yeah, the only podcast about movies. No,
you were one podcast away from it being true.
Yes,
I appreciate that, CJ. I appreciate you reaching out to us. And I think for listeners who haven't tuned in, I was on CJ's podcast a few weeks ago talking about Asghar Farhadi's The Salesman, which was another film that
Salesman. Sorry, every time.
Every time Matt's got to do that. Which was another film that we were one of the only few people talking about. But I think what's been happening, which has been interesting, is that CJ and I have been maybe having sort of a long distance internet bromance kind of happening right now, which is that I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of CJ here. You might be disagreeing with me.
Just disagree, make it real awkward, CJ.
No.
But it seems
I've come to the table on that.
It seems like we have a lot of cinematic taste in common, which is really fun. Even to the point where the song that you chose for the end of your Asghar Farhadi podcast was actually a song I happened to be listening to that day on the subway. A track by Max Richter. So we've been enjoying that.
That was a colossal piece of synchronicity.
Yeah, it was. There you go. You see that?
He's already doing this. He's already moving the things forward that we never do. He's merging them.
So if you like what you hear, you can check CJ on his podcast, Movieland, ABC's Movieland, which is available on iTunes and all the usual outlets. I'm sure it's a very popular podcast. CJ also has a show on Skippy TV called Watch This. CJ, what's the address for that? Where can people find that?
Just go to Skippy TV. That's SKIPI.TV. And there are about 4 programs on that channel, and one of them is Watch This.
Great. And then finally, you can check out all of CJ's reviews on filmmafia.com.au for all your written reviews.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you like CJ's work, you might like some of our work, which you can reach us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
See, CJ did the transition better. We could have just gone.
Matt is shaking his head right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll give your transition like a 4. CJ's was like an 8.
Look, this is going to be even worse. But my transition was a colossal failure, would you say?
Even it out at a solid 5.5 now. Yeah, no, keep going.
You can reach us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at onlymoviepod. Check out our Facebook page and also check out our website, onlymoviepodcast.com. But this week, we are going to be reviewing a film where I think our CJ and my internet bromance might be diverging slightly.
Whoa. Is it going to be tested, or you guys? Man.
I think this is going to be our first real moment. We'll see how it goes. But the movie we're reviewing is Colossal, a new film by Nacho
Vigalondo. You messed it up.
Nacho Vigalondo.
Yeah, he did it. He fixed it.
Yes, Nacho. Thank you very much, CJ.
See, this is what it must be like to be professional.
Yeah, I know. It's something that we just don't.
Don't ever do. Yeah. So I honestly, guys, didn't have any connection to this filmmaker whatsoever. I had heard of one of his films, V/H/S.
Oh, that's the only one you've heard of?
Yeah. So
really?
I feel like I was out of the loop.
Literally out of the loop, because the film he's most famous for, or most well known for, other than being nominated for an Oscar for one of his short films, is a film called Time Crimes. CJ, have you seen Time Crimes?
I haven't seen any of Nacho's
Oh, really?
work,
Am I the only one?
Not even the short film.
Am I the only one in the room? I feel special now. You guys need to.
I haven't seen Open Windows either, and I haven't seen VHS. I think I started VHS and I didn't enjoy it.
VHS is an anthology
and
film,
so,
right?
He's a brand new filmmaker to me as well.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, guys, go check out Time Crimes, because Matt, in particular, I mean, I think both of you will love it because it's a fantastic movie. But I think, Matt, you in particular will love Time Crimes in that it's a great genre film, but it's also really smart, and it does interesting things with the time travel genre, to the point where I would say it is probably one of the best time travel movies I've ever seen.
Okay. All right.
It's right up there.
Up there with Primer? Compared to Primer?
Well, so here's the thing. Primer is a film I've watched 5 times, and every time I watch it, I still feel like I have no idea what's happening. I am a fan of Shane Carruth as a filmmaker, and I had some role in getting his film Primer into the New Zealand Film Festival many, many, many years ago before he won Sundance.
Was this before or after you were almost a Black Power Ranger?
No, probably around the same. No, it was after I was almost a Black Power Ranger.
Okay, CJ, I've been trying to piece together Shahir's sordid history. Then he was telling me he was a Power Ranger almost, and he's going to get into raves. Now he's helping Primer get into film festivals. I need a timeline.
Well, you need a timeline that works.
I know, it's fantastic.
There's a lot about me that you guys don't know. My striptease history will come soon through. But Primer...
That was a 3.
Yeah,
that was a 3.
Primer's a movie that
striptease in New Zealand, it's really top.
Listen, we're not...
Power Rangers striptease.
Yeah, scraping the bottom of the barrel for if you're going for male strippers in New Zealand, especially on this side. Primer's a movie I really like in principle, but I don't enjoy, if that makes sense.
I can see, I understand the statement.
Yeah. But Time Crimes is a film that is not as complex as Primer in terms of what it's trying to do with time, but it's one of those time travel films that's wonderful to unwrap as you watch it. And it does really, really cool things with the time travel idea, even while it kind of, because it's low budget, the technology that it uses as a time travel device are very, very low budget, and doesn't really make any attempts to do that better. It's a really, really terrific film. Nacho,
you've sold me. I'm definitely got to seek it out, because I love Primer and the concept. I love Looper.
Yeah,
I like Triangle, and the concept of such a film is right up my alley. I like time travel movies that actually wrestle with the time travel conundrum effectively and intelligently.
In fact, it does it in a way that is almost so simple you kind of go, oh, I'm wondering why no time travel film has actually done this before.
Last question. Is it anything like Terminator Genesis?
Actually.
No, don't. See, I was on board with seeing it.
Actually.
What? How? No.
No, just in terms of the machinations of how it uses time travel.
Oh, I was doing that as a joke, and now I poisoned the well.
No, it's definitely nothing like Genesis.
Okay, then I'll see it.
Like you, CJ mentioned before, I haven't actually kept up with a lot of his films because I don't feel that they've made impacts, although I like the idea of his film Extraterrestrial, which is a film about
Kanye West and Katy Perry having sex in space. I saw the music video.
Yeah, it's pretty much that. Yeah. Also, it's this little green creature phoning home with an AT&T card. But no, it's about an alien invasion where a guy has just met who he thinks to be the love of his life, and has to deal with this alien invasion in the background. So again, he's doing that thing, which is he's taking a sort of big high concept genre thing and moving it around in a slightly different way, or looking at it sideways. The other film is Open Windows, the film with Elijah Wood and Sasha Grey, I believe.
What?
Yeah, she was a movie star as well for a short period of time on Entourage.
Sasha Grey from Girlfriend Experience?
The Girlfriend Experience, yes, absolutely. We're all gonna just avoid the obvious of saying we know who Sasha Grey is outside of her cinematic reel. Yeah, Sasha Grey from the Girlfriend Experience.
She was that humanitarian activist.
I actually really like her in The Girlfriend Experience as well. I really like The Girlfriend
Oh,
Experience.
she's fantastic.
Yeah. It's a real. That was one of my favorite films that year. Actually, The Girlfriend Experience. I think it's a really good movie.
So
I love that movie, and I love the television series as well.
I haven't watched the television series, but I've been meaning to catch it. Yeah. So you can see already, CJ and I have a lot in common. But Matt, tell us a little bit about Colossal.
Well, hold on. Even before that,
Girlfriend Experience television series has a connection to Shane Carruth too. He does the music.
Oh, does he? And I forget the director's name on the Girlfriend Experience TV series, but he did a film called Clean Shaven, which I really
Kerrigan.
like.
Was Sasha Grey also in Clean Shaven?
Ah, Matt.
No, I'm just asking a question. We were talking about a topic, and I just didn't know, and I'm just trying to piece things together. No, I have a question for both of you, gentlemen.
To be fair, that was a good segue.
Thank you. The other sort of divisive thing before we actually get into the plot and what we think about this movie in particular, even the synopsis, how do you guys feel about Anne Hathaway, especially CJ? How do you feel about? Do you like her work overall or not?
I've always loved her. I've always been a huge Anne Hathaway fan. I think she's terrific.
Mm-hmm.
I think even if you go back to the Princess Diaries, and which I sort of half watched the other day because I've got a young daughter, she is excellent. She has always been good. I guess she's a teenager in the Princess Diaries,
right,
and she brings a vibrancy and a professionalism and a quirkiness, and she does more than just, do the lines properly and do the physical moves. She brings her own personality and her own sense of humor. So I think she's absolutely fantastic. I don't understand why there is some sort of anti-Anne Hathaway camp, because in my mind, she's done everything properly, unless there's a whole realm of tabloid gossip that I just haven't seen, and she turns out that she is, on a personal level, some kind of asshole. I don't understand why people don't appreciate her, because I think she's excellent.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same camp.
I don't know. I mean, I think it happened to Gwyneth Paltrow around the time she won the Oscar as well. All of a sudden, it was cool to hate on Gwyneth Paltrow.
Well, everyone loves someone until they can tear them down. I mean, that's sort of the way it goes.
I can more understand, because
I know.
Paltrow puts weird stuff on the internet that just makes you want to run.
But that happened.
But Anne Hathaway just seems.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that one, CJ, as well. I've never seen an Anne Hathaway performance that I haven't liked. And the film that she really sold me on, that I kind of fell in love with her as an actress, is Rachel Getting Married. I think she's wonderful in that movie. And it's just a wonderful film in general. So it's one of those weird things where I was like, why do people hate her for being good at what she does?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, no, I think that's I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think people hate her because she's good at what she does. I mean, you can even watch to a point of the Jennifer Lawrence phenomenon, where like everyone loved her because she's so real, and then she gets too popular, and then some stuff happens, and then everyone just starts hating her, and now she's fake real, and you're just like, this is the other thing I think too about when we have this sort of a hatred for an actor or an actress as a group. I'm not talking about the three of us, just the populace in general. It's like, yeah, it's just this weird sort of like bandwagon effect that just doesn't need to happen, and I don't fully understand it. I don't know.
What I love about the marketing of this movie as it's coming out is that this is kind of seen as the redemption of Anne Hathaway in some respect.
So strange.
It's so strange, and it's part of the. It seems to be part of the marketing of this film. Is like, oh, people are reminded, oh yeah, Anne Hathaway, she was such a great actress.
Like she had to take a year off or a couple of years off to like get out of this like stink. And this is my other point. Like, so these great actors or actresses that people start hating on, it's probably because they said something that wasn't fully like exactly likable all the time. Like obviously Gwyneth Paltrow is the exception because she has a little bit of crazy sauce on the internet all the time. But the like, I know people didn't particularly like Anne Hathaway's Oscar speech, and okay, who gives a crap? And then it's just sort of this weird, like, they're not perfect people. They're people. They're going to say stuff. I have people, I'm sitting across from a person, TJ, that says stuff that pisses me off sometimes, but I don't like write him off. Like, it's just, I think we forget sometimes that these people are not just built to be our like dancing entertainment forever. And they actually have opinions, and they might not jive. That doesn't take away from any talent they may have.
So if it is the Oscar thing, it could also boil down to the fact that there are people on the internet who just hate movie musicals. They hate them.
True.
And so the subset of those people that were pissed off that she won an Oscar for being in a musical in a role that only sang but that's getting down to a small amount of people.
Yeah.
It is getting down to a small amount, yeah, and I don't understand. But Matt, tell us a little bit about the Anne Hathaway redemption story.
Well, this is what IMDb says, gentlemen. This is the description. A woman discovers that severe catastrophic events are somehow connected to the mental breakdown from which she is suffering.
That seems almost retrofitted.
Yeah, right?
Entirely.
Yeah.
And, we tend to read out the IMDb synopsis of many films we do, and I think this one doesn't quite apply.
No,
but
bad on you, IMDb, for once. That didn't work out for me. We have a couple. So basically, I don't know. I mean, who wants to give us a little bit of first thoughts about this thing?
Well, can I just say this about my experience going to Colossal?
Oh, please.
absolutely.
Yeah, I went to see Colossal probably nearly a month ago now at a media screening, so I knew nothing. I managed to really, really, really keep myself very, very distant from it because the moment I heard a year ago, that Anne Hathaway was doing some weird movie involving a monster, a Godzilla-like monster.
Yeah.
I was able then to not find out anymore because that idea thrilled me so much. I love the idea that Oscar winner Anne Hathaway has chosen to do such a quirky project. So I really, absolutely, I didn't even know her co-stars. I didn't know that Sudeikis was in it when I went to see it. And I had no idea what her relationship to the monster was going to be. I'd heard vaguely that maybe it was also some sort of rom-com. That was it. So I saw it cold. So I got luckily a very pure viewing experience of this movie.
Nice.
You got the experience that I hope to have every time I go to the movies now. I can imagine the moment that, and this is not a spoiler, but it's in the trailer if you watch the trailers, but the moment that Anne Hathaway realizes that she is the monster, so to speak, in some respect.
She's somehow connected to it, yes.
You must have been like, oh my God, that's what this movie is, right? I mean, it must have come as
totally. Yeah, that was a nice big surprise.
And Matt, here's an interesting thing about my experience of going to the movie, which is that you texted me immediately afterwards. Immediately after I walked out of the movie, which was some sort of weird telekinesis.
Oh my God, were you my monster?
You knew where I was at that moment.
Oh man.
But you were like, I think this is going to be a really interesting discussion. I don't want us to share notes with each other at all, because occasionally we will look at each other's notes before we start an episode. So before we do our own personal reviews, Matt, I'm curious what you think my opinion of the movie would be.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Okay.
Because you seem to you really wanted to like do this proper.
What do I think? You think? Yeah. Well, see, I'm gonna have to say some stuff that I think about the film in order to get to that.
Why don't
point.
You go first then?
Because my opinions will then paint what I think your opinions are. First of all, I really respected this for attempting to basically twist a genre that actually, even with the trailer, is kind of kept a little bit secret, twisting it into a sort of kaiju-esque film. I mean, that is something that I hadn't seen before, and I think that's kudos to Nacho for actually trying to do that. I also think, and this goes into how I don't even quite know how you'd react here, I think this is a really hard film to review. There are a ton of flaws in it, and I can totally see why people wouldn't like it, or I've seen it get panned a bunch of places. I mean, in my opinion, these are just sort of going down the list. The camera work is pretty boring. Soundtrack isn't great. Whenever it tried to go back to any sort of explanation of exactly why these things were happening, I was like, oh, come on. The actors kind of tend to play more tropes than characters, which is usually a turnoff for me, but I think both Sudeikis and Hathaway actually do a really good job of that. More on that later. And the comedic timing in this film is just off, where you don't know if something's supposed to be funny or not. And that even had that experience in my theater. Like, people were laughing at moments, and I was like, what is wrong with everyone but me in this theater?
Right.
All these things kind of make for an uncomfortable and kind of confusing movie-going experience, which I can see why, again, people wouldn't like it, but I also see, when you sort of get into sort of what it's more about later on, and we'll get into this in spoilers, it actually, I feel like all of those things strengthen it as a project, not necessarily as just a film that you're seeing. Again, I know I'm sort of teasing, but with that all in mind, Shakir, I think, because you could come at this from two different places, buddy. You could come at this from a purely technical standpoint and just hate it. Or you could come at it I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've painted you into a corner.
You kind of did. I mean, you hate fun. CJ, we both know this, right? I mean, that's Shahir's MO.
But he kind of likes Childhood of the Leader, and that movie is nothing if not fun.
Please go back and please go back and watch Childhood of a Leader to see what Shahir's idea of fun is.
Is a buoyant romp.
It's a beautiful coming of age tale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Shahir,
like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's a.
So, all right.
Don't go to Six Flags
CJ,
or any amusement park. Just go see Childhood of the Leader.
CJ, we're going to hand it over to you after my point because I want you to have the final word before we get into spoilers. But Sweet. Matt, you're not incorrect in anything you've said. I think this movie has some really, really glaring flaws that are very difficult to look over. But that said, I hope somewhere Guillermo del Toro is watching this movie and has a huge smile on his face, because to me, what this film does is it makes the Pacific Rim idea of a movie into something actually interesting. And a little bit of backstory here. I think the first movie Matt and I went to see together was Pacific Rim.
Was it really?
I think it was. And we both walked out of there. It was probably the seed for this podcast happened at that screening, which is that we walked out of there and Matt was like, I really like that. And I was like, I hated that movie so much. And I couldn't stand Pacific Rim. I love Guillermo del Toro as a filmmaker, but I found that movie so boring and painful to watch and uninteresting. And what I loved about Colossal is, despite all its flaws, I love this idea of taking the kaiju film and looking at it sideways and turning it into the battle of the sexes. Now, yes, it has major problems. It has major logic problems. It jumps tonally from comedy to hard drama in some cases very abruptly, and to the point where you're not quite sure that it was intentional or accidental, or the director doesn't quite have a hold on this film. And I would argue, even though that is true, you could certainly see that maybe the director doesn't have a hold on this film. It still works. And like you say, Matt, it's kind of the joy in this movie is watching it kind of unravel and go in directions you don't expect it to take. And it's anchored by two really good performances. Anne Hathaway is great as usual. I really loved her in this. I also I loved frumpy Anne Hathaway, which is not to say her look, but just this idea that she, this person who we've come to associate with being prim and proper and perfect at all times is just kind of down on her luck here.
I took it as Catwoman without the skills.
That's when she becomes sexy, Anne Hathaway.
Oh, right.
Like in Rachel Getting Married, and in this one, as soon as she's, got alcoholic rings under her eyes and, she's a kind of a bad girl, she goes from pretty pristine Anne Hathaway to sexy, dirty Anne Hathaway.
Well, I wasn't a big fan of Catwoman Anne Hathaway, to be honest with you, but that I think that has more to do with the film.
That's more to do with you hating fun. I think that's one of the only good spots. Anyway.
Did you say the only good Spider-Man movie?
Only good spots in the movie. Yeah, the only good Spider-Man movies with Anne Hathaway.
I don't know. I didn't know what you look,
that woman.
Yeah.
This movie's not a genre smasher. It doesn't it's not like Scream is to the horror genre, but to me, it twists what we know and think about in terms of the kaiju film or the monster movie in a way that is really interesting. And almost the highest praise I would give it is to me, it makes a film like Godzilla, and I'm talking about the Gareth Edwards version, and Pacific Rim seem a little silly by comparison, which is that this takes it and does something really interesting with it, something where I actually care about the stakes, something where I'm actually invested in what's going to happen, to a genre where I'm generally don't feel that way often.
All right.
So I kind of loved it. CJ, I've read your review. Go ahead.
I hated this movie, and I think I can only discuss hating it as a whole. So can you issue your spoiler alert? Because everything I hate about the movie kind of starts at the halfway mark.
Okay. All right. So now, ladies and gentlemen, CJ's calling it, man. It's going to be spoiler time. And yeah.
We're heading it in 3, 2, 1. Go for it, CJ.
Yeah.
the first half of this movie had me thoroughly intrigued. I was enjoying it. Anne Hathaway's performance is excellent. Jason Sudeikis, I've always enjoyed him. His performance was excellent. The town was intriguing. Her reveal of the fact that she is, she is running the monster that's destroying Seoul every night at 8:05 p.m. was fascinating. And it was an intriguing movie. And I thought, whatever this is going to end up being, it's doing it well. I assumed it was going to be a rom-com. I think we were all led down that path, that she was going to end up with Jason Sudeikis, and that the obstacle in the way was the young sexy boy that she wanted to have sex with. And of course, the other, elephant in the room was the fact that she was a monster, and as it turned out, Jason Sudeikis was being a monster too. Halfway through this film, and this is the spoiler of the film, it stops being any of those things and becomes a battle of the sexes drama. And it slows the hell down. And there are very, very long, boring scenes of Jason Sudeikis going on these boring monologues about disliking women and his lot in life and how his life has been ruined. And that scene in his bar with Anne Hathaway and Dan Stevens and him is interminable beyond belief. It is literally like you suddenly ran into a slow motion machine, or they ran out of footage and had to reach their running time. And it becomes laugh free. And that is obviously deliberate. It becomes a drama, and it's already been a very, 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 very heavy handed metaphor for alcoholism. Obviously, like so heavy handed that that's the one thing that I disliked about the first half, is I was like, okay, we get it. The monster is our alcoholism. But then it tries to be a metaphor for domestic violence. And it treats that subject idiotically and boringly. And I just hated the second half for all of those reasons. I mean, his character, Jason Sudeikis' character, who takes over the movie, he has all the dialogue in the second half. He has most of the shots. He takes it over from Anne Hathaway, and she becomes sort of a minor character in her own movie until the end. His stuff is boring, and we get it, and it's labored and belabored over and over and over again. And also, the way that they deal with the fisticuffs, the domestic violence, the men's violence against women stuff, I think is not well done and not particularly well thought out.
So it's interesting. You both brought up the term "battle of the sexes" sort of film, and it's funny because
that's what I think it becomes.
I don't think it, at least for me, it didn't do that at all. I think it's more on to your point, CJ. It's a film that, yes, in the beginning, because it's supposed to be, you think it's kind of a bit of a rom-com, a heavy-handed, allegory for alcoholism or addiction, sort of in general. And then I believe the sort of domestic violence stuff is just sort of, again, tacked on to that sort of angle of alcoholism or the effects of it, and more so. The reason why I think I like this movie beyond all of its broken parts is because, and I was going to kind of save this for the end, but I do feel like rather than going through like kind of what we normally do with this thing, it is more interesting to just sort of discuss the reasons, because it is kind of a polarizing film. This movie kind of got me. It got me in the right part of the feels, and I think it's because, and I don't want to turn this into a downer, gentlemen, but I have had experiences in my life dealing with addicts and alcoholics, and it's an interesting thing to say, because all the things that you said, CJ, for instance, like it got long and boring, and then these spikes of these sort of things, and then like it felt uneven and all this stuff. The experience you get in the second half of this film, I don't know if I've ever watched a movie that has felt more closer to dealing with an alcoholic in the middle of their in the depths of it.
You haven't seen Leaving Las Vegas?
Then, yeah. No, but you know what I mean? Like this, for whatever reason, a lot of the it's funny. It's stuff that you're watching and you're not liking it. Like I didn't like watching parts of this movie, but it got me thinking and feeling, especially after sleeping on it. I had slept on it before I wrote up my notes for this thing. It feels so much like dealing with an alcoholic that you're close with.
Right.
And I think that has to do with, again, a lot of the performances. But again, you mentioned how Jason Sudeikis kind of takes over, and he absolutely does. And it's sort of, it becomes, I don't think it becomes a battle of the sexes, even though there's definitely some domestic violence sprinkled in there. I think it becomes about, and it moves in a couple different ways, but it becomes about sort of the fallout that a alcoholic or an addict has on the communities around them. Obviously, it's exacerbated by being halfway across the world, and if they step into this certain playground, they become these monsters in another country that then smash and kill people.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, Anne Hathaway's character basically becomes sort of self-aware to the point where she doesn't want to hurt anybody. She tries to clean up her act. Where Jason Sudeikis it's not even. At first, we thought like, oh, maybe he was jealous, or he wants to like be with her, but it turns out he was just always sort of jealous of her. It wasn't even like a desire thing. It was just he wanted whatever she had through a couple different things, and he wants to be important. He's not happy with his lot in life, and he just uses this power that they've had to try to keep her and hold some sort of sway over her. The way alcoholics threaten to do certain things in the depths of their own thing to keep the people around them involved. And it's an interesting take on it. And I don't know if it's because A, I love kaiju movies, and B, that this sort of really made me feel shit that I had kind of forgotten about and not wanted to deal with. But it just felt so much like that experience. And that's why again, it's so weird to say, I know I'm rambling. It's so weird to say I enjoyed something, but like I didn't enjoy watching this movie, but unless it lucked into this, which it totally could have, that doesn't mean that I don't think this movie's awesome.
Right. You do think it's awesome? Or you don't?
Do. Even though it's not. I don't know. It's
You are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde right now.
Yeah. It's I don't know. You guys talk. I just talked for a long time.
I think.
Go ahead, CJ.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that it's interesting because I think that everything you're attributing to it exists within it. Like it is meant to be it's trying to be a very good movie about alcoholism and do all the things that you just mentioned. In other words, that's all there. I just think they're all done very badly. I think, especially after the halfway mark, I think the way they load up Jason Sudeikis' character in the second half with his problems and with his attitudes towards her and his attitudes towards the innocent lives that he's risking and all of this, I just think are done very, very badly and incredibly heavy-handedly. I think, the alcohol metaphor starts quite well in the beginning of the film, and it just gets belabored and belabored and belabored. And I think, they give Jason Sudeikis too much. I think by the end of the film, you are sick of seeing him talk because he is not able to bring enough variance anymore, because his character becomes such a one-note monster and stays a one-note monster for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, really, really long segments of the film.
And that experience that you've just described, I'm not asking for any facts from anybody else, I'm just giving my own, is the exact experience that I have experienced when dealing with an alcoholic, because it's just work, and it's tedium, and it's nonsense, and you're dealing with garbage, and you're trying to push through it, and that it's so weird to like this film. And again, I have to keep using the term, it could have lucked into it, but it just felt like it used all of these flaws to its advantage, at least for me. And again, it's such a straight, because again, I don't disagree with any criticism you're giving it, but yet for whatever reason, I think it's a bonus.
So CJ, I'm sort of 50-50 on this, on your points, which is that, hey, I actually don't think the way alcoholism is treated in this film is belabored by the end of it. One thing I was kind of glad about is that the film never actually really uses the term alcoholism or uses the term addiction. It seems to be just there. These are people that are clearly addicts. We know they are. We can see it in their actions. But we don't need to actually talk about it. None of them are trying to get therapy. None of them have a moment where they, suddenly have their moment where they
moment of clarity.
Their moment of clarity.
Sudeikis kind of does, but he does exactly what people in the situation do, and then he just jumps right back to the same old nonsense.
I will agree entirely that I think the tonal shift from Sudeikis' tonal shift, and it happens in one scene. There's one scene in particular. It's the firework in the bar scene, which is such an abrupt tonal shift, and it's such a strange moment where you actually don't understand why he's doing anything he's doing. Is really problematic. It's not handled very well.
Also, the graphics for all the big monster stuff, they couldn't get fired down.
Yeah. As a compositor myself, I noticed that. I was like, "Ooh,
man, that screen's burning in the same spot for a long time."
Yeah. But what I did like about this film is it started out as, what you would expect the traditional rom-com to be. It's the girl who's going back to her hometown. She meets up with an old friend, / old flame, and they rekindle.
I never got flame.
They rekindle their relationship.
No, they were always only friends.
Yeah, they rekindle their friendship. They rekindle their thing, and obviously he is a single man. She is a single woman. We presume that this is where this is going to go. What I really like about this film is that the second half illustrates how inappropriate everything that Jason Sudeikis does in the first half. How inappropriate everything he did was. Like he turns up at her house with a TV. He gives her a job. He provides her furniture, and he presumes that means that there is some potential for a relationship there. And it's classic kind of male stalker behavior. It's classic. It's classic sort of romantic comedy behavior. Like in romantic comedies, when a guy likes a girl, he does all these things for her. He pines after her, and usually in a fairly typical romantic comedy, he usually gets the girl. And what I like in this movie is that shift. You realize halfway through this movie that is not even a possibility for Anne Hathaway. Even though she's friends with him, she's not in any way romantically interested in this guy. And, to the point where she sleeps with someone else very, very easily, and has no interest in Jason Sudeikis' character. And that drives him crazy. Now, I agree, the tonal shift doesn't work, so to speak, but I liked where the movie went. You know what I mean? I guess what I'm saying is I don't like the way the movie got to where it was going, but I liked where it went and where it turned. As far as and I liked that Sudeikis himself started as this kind of nice guy romantic comedy kind of figure and ended the film being the villain in every way, shape, and form. I don't think that the reason that they're kaiju and like as they explain in flashbacks really works at all. I think that
sucked pretty bad.
That's done really badly. But the thing that
you mean the flashback to when they're kids?
Yeah, I think that was done really, really badly, and it added nothing to the film.
Yeah, that was terrible. It was like, here's a piece of revelation that doesn't work.
Yeah,
exactly.
It just doesn't work, and it adds nothing to the film. But what that entire sort of milieu of Hathaway, Sudeikis, and the third person played by Austin Stowell, Joel, the kind of mild-mannered lover that she takes on,
who doesn't help her at all.
Yeah, his character motivations are very flawed and weak.
When he's sitting in the truck with Sudeikis, and you're thinking hold on, just what
I know.
Why are you there?
Upon further reflection about that character, because basically he sort of stands idle by and lets Sudeikis run amok and do some horrible things. But it almost is akin to
an enabler. He's an
enabler, but also, and then he's an enabler. But then if you look at even after this glorious bar scene where he lights a firework off in his own bar and basically destroys his own bar, saying it's the most irresponsible thing I could possibly do. But even after doing that, she's not going to leave with you with this other guy, her boyfriend Tim from New York, and then she doesn't. Mm-hmm. And that is typical burning down the house, literally addict behavior. And then people that are also in that embroiled stuff, either that are also addicts themselves or just that care about the person for whatever reason, they don't leave because you can't.
Right. Now, again, so I agree. I agree with all of that it's problematic. It doesn't work. Things are handled kind of in a muddled way. But when this film gets to its finale, where essentially what you're kind of talking about the third act buildup before the final confrontation. When it gets to the final confrontation, and Anne Hathaway kind of takes the reins back from Sudeikis by flying to, and again, spoilers at this point, flying to Seoul to do the inverse monster thing. I really love this moment, even though it has the biggest logical inconsistency of all, which is that people are still hanging out in Seoul where this monster appears. That makes no sense.
That drove me crazy.
It is crazy.
Because if you're going to do this thing, you should have at least an interior logic. And by having these people constantly going back to eat noodles and drink coffee in the footsteps of the monsters that have been appearing, it just was
it never dealt with that appropriately. I will say this. I was trying to think of it. I was, again, if you start thinking about this film in a logical sense, it does just melt away.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is,
I would know to go to Seoul to do that. I mean, that makes no sense.
But the interesting thing is, I was thinking about this. I'm like, well, why would people stay? I mean, okay, they said very briefly that they cordoned off a part of the city where the monster came. So like they're nearby, but the monsters never went further than a certain point. But then the other thing would be, if monsters started doing this in real life, if they just appeared and whatever, and again, they didn't paint it like this, but that people would go there in droves to see it for themselves. Now, you are right, both of you, in the sense that what the people we see are just the typical people running away from a monster that look like they're just going to work 9 to 5, or as you say, just eating noodles at the shop.
Yeah.
But like, I thought about it, and I did the whole circle of like, this makes no sense. Well, what if it was kind of like this? Oh, you know what? It doesn't really matter for me. Like, it's kaiju fodder.
It didn't really matter for me. And what really did work for me was Anne Hathaway stepping up to Sudeikis at the end and grabbing him. Now, as soon as I say that, her throwing him into a mountain, like
Team Rocket is blasting off again.
Like literally murdering him towards the end of the movie, did like make me go, huh? But I can't. I guess the reason why the movie worked for me is I was willing to accept that and deal with the movie on a metaphorical level. And on a metaphorical level, I actually think it does work. On a literal level, it obviously doesn't. But It's also about
anytime it tries to explain itself to be like set in a sort of real, or like make enough rules where it would make sense, it falls.
So I don't know if
Shahir, on a metaphorical level, then what does the ending say? Does the ending say that if you are being physically abused by a male friend, that you should murder them?
No, I think that's the literal interpretation. I think the metaphorical interpretation is she regains her power in that relationship by showing him who's actually in charge, or by showing him that she has power in this relationship, that he's not going to rule over her. It's a classic sort of bully fight back, like that she's doing. And it worked for me. It was rousing. I felt it. I believed it. I believed that she had taken a turn for the better at that point, and that she was doing something to do it. Is it the most mind-blowing exploration of domestic abuse or bullying or alcoholism? No, it's not. It's none of those things. But I felt that the film was being sincere in that moment, and it worked for me in that moment. And I had a smile when she just the other side of it is, I like the way that the machinations of using the metaphor are played out through this sort of high concept kaiju thing. I think that was actually very clever, and it gave me enough of a sense of how this film could deal with genre in interesting ways that really just put a smile on my face. I can't explain it more than I think at the heart of it, this film is sincere about what it wants to do. It does stumble many, many times, and it does fall over many, many times. But overall, I'd much rather see... I guess maybe this is the other point is, I can't for the life of me remember or care about any of the human drama in Pacific Rim or Godzilla or most of those big monster movies. Here's a big monster movie where I actually am engaged in what the characters are thinking and what they're doing and what the outcome will be. I'm actually interested in these two people and the way that they're going to deal with it. So I think, right. at least at a genre level, I think that Nacho Vigalondo, butchered again. Nacho Vigalondo has done
Vigalondo
has done something really interesting here by looking at the genre sideways, and he does that very, very well. And to me, like I say, I would rather I'd take this film with all its flaws over Pacific Rim any day of the week. Over 10 Pacific Rims.
I just think putting those two movies on the same page is just, to me, ludicrous, because it's so obviously not a big action monster movie. It is a movie about human relationships that has these monsters in it to be this metaphor. And I don't think I don't think it has anything to do with Pacific Rim, because I don't think it's a big monster movie. It is a film about, violence and alcoholism that starts out by pretending to be a rom-com. If anything, the cut of this movie that I would want to see, or the alternative version of this movie that I would want to see, does not have the kaiju at all, and cuts away a lot of the boring stuff in the second act, and is simply a film about this woman who goes back to her hometown and discovers this old friend who's become a grumpy alcoholic and kind of violent, and then she leaves and realizes she doesn't need to be around him. I really don't think the kaiju have anything to do with it, and in fact, I think the kaiju kind of just every time you cut back to them towards the second half of the film, I was just bored by them. And it feels like the genesis of the film to me was like, okay, let's do something quirky with kaiju. And as they were writing the script, being like, oh, we can make this more serious than just a rom-com. What if it's actually about, also about violence and men and bullying and all of this? And at some point, it just got mixed up in all three ways. And so there were a few good ideas on paper, none of which ended up being executed well on their own.
See, I think the thing is, you and I are looking at this movie from a different point of view, which is that, the film that you're describing without the kaiju, and it seems like in the world of Rachel getting married, of Pieces of April, something along those lines. And I think I genuinely think as that kind of film, this would be fairly uninteresting. What I'm looking at it from is a film that takes a big. I actually do believe that this is an action film, a big sort of blockbuster film, but with a real heart and soul to it, and trying to do something different with the big action set pieces, which is that it's trying to give those action moments some heart and weight. And again, and that's the thing. That's the thing. I care about. I think the machinations between the kaiju story and Gloria's story are really actually well considered.
Anne Hathaway's character's name's Gloria, by the way. We didn't say that.
I think they're really well considered, and I think to me, the kaiju thing is actually the nexus. It is the fulcrum of the story. It really is the soul of what the story is about.
No pun intended. See, because it was in Seoul, guys. It took place when the monsters.
Whoa!
Yeah, there we go.
Do you think they're good action scenes? I mean, if that's the case, if this is actually a big action monster movie with heart, then let's talk about the monster movie in isolation. It's terrible. It's there's not much going on.
What's terrible? What's terrible about it?
I was going to say, I agree with CJ on this. It's weird. It's so weird. I agree with 50% of both of you, but like different parts of it. So it's hard. I'm like writing down notes to figure out what I'm trying to say. I don't think this is an action movie at all. I think the CG that they did for the monsters looks cool and it's comparable and it looks nice, whatever. But like you really see like one or two punches and a foot going through a building.
And I think that's all you need to see.
I understand that, but that doesn't make it an action movie. What that makes it is using kaiju elements to sort of exacerbate the other tones that they're trying to do. And what I think is important too is, and why I do think, so I guess I just disagreed with Shahir and now I'm going to disagree with CJ.
Yeah.
But so like, I think the kaiju thing is very important when for two reasons. One, when looking at the sort of abuse that addicts or even domestic violence things happen, and the way society sort of looks at it. So, for instance, whenever the Oscar, played by Jason Sudeikis, and Gloria, played by Anne Hathaway, step into this one playground that they have a history with in a childhood, they're exactly one way across the world. Their monsters show up. She's the big lizard monster. He's the robot. Right? They're standing there, and at first it's kind of playful before it gets bad after a couple times, but they fight. They physically fight, and then the monsters physically fight. And when this happens, you hear people in windows, in adjoining buildings in America, in the town that they're in, not in Seoul, in South Korea. You hear people cheer, and just cheer the violence that's happening because they're loving watching the spectacle of these big monsters punching each other. Now, that's not the spectacle we're seeing. We don't see it at all. I understand, Shahir, because you do hate mindless action, aka fun. That you would think this is better, or maybe this you can just sort of project enough action through it where like you I don't know, that this sates that whatever part of your lizard brain that you need for that sort of thing. You need it to be a little bit higher brow. But it's all sort of just it's emotional weight as opposed to action weight. And then two, the idea that they're using kaiju in this sort of way, in this sort of big monster movie trope, and not showing the action but really, really doubling down on the addiction metaphors, I think is a helpful thing for, again, I mean, look, it might be a very specific Venn diagram, but nerdy people who have had to deal with this shit. And because a lot of that stuff doesn't really come into play in a lot of the stuff that's sort of made for that demographic. And I think it's just it's a good way to have that conversation in a genre, even if it kind of tricks you, trying to get people involved and sort of thinking about it.
I think you've hit a nail on the head there, Matt. I think that the kaiju is a gimmick to get people in and then give them a story about something else.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think it feels like a gimmick.
It definitely it feels like a gimmick. But I would say this, because I know Shahir and I have even argued about the definition of a gimmick. It is a gimmick, but it is a successful gimmick. Like, I think it gets you in, and you're 100% right. But then there's moments like the cheering, or the moments when she's actually defeated. He has already knocked her down after actually literally punching her in the face, and then is stomping around in this sandbox.
I love that scene.
It's beautiful. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't work without the kaiju gimmick. It just wouldn't work with this thing that, like, we never see the destruction of Sudeikis stomping on people and destroying a neighborhood, but we see Anne Hathaway's reaction to it and kind of reaching out to him, and all we see is him just stomping in a sandbox.
Yeah.
And because that gimmick, that scene wouldn't work if the gimmick didn't work. Now, CJ, what did you think of that scene in particular? Did that work for you, or were you just so just done with this movie?
Not at all. Not at all. I really disliked that scene. I thought it was very bad, very heavy-handed, and it came to epitomize where the movie had reached for me. So I was kind of done with the movie, and then when I saw that scene, I was like, oh my goodness. It really felt like, they'd got the nail into the piece of wood 38 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And they were still hammering it. And every time you saw one of his feet come down in slow motion, I just thought, my God, they think I'm an idiot.
That's so strange.
This whole thing like ages ago.
I couldn't disagree with you more on that, CJ. I love that moment, because I think that the thing that was interesting there to me was the escalation and the dips of Sudeikis' character, and what his name is Oscar, by the way, and what he was like willing to do in order to maintain power over Gloria at this point. And just another, I mean, I guess, I'm looking at it as a genre exercise, perhaps, and as a genre film. And just the other side of it that I love is that this is a film with a budget of $15 million, whereas Pacific Rim is a film with a budget of $180 million.
I just don't think this movie and Pacific Rim
and hold on a second. No, they're not. You're right. They're not. They're not together. But my point here is that I don't care about anything that happens in Pacific Rim. I really don't care. And Pacific Rim has some of the most beautiful big action sequences by one of the big, best visual stylist working directors in Hollywood. What my point is that this makes me care about the destruction of a city without even showing me the destruction of a city. And it does that by investing the emotional weight behind why that destruction is happening. It's not just a mindless monster. It is a creature with emotional depths that have been mined to a point that are so far below what is a normal human level. And I'm invested in that. And I think that the final scene, the classic battle between the two monsters, has emotional weight to it. And I found it rousing, and I was really invested in it.
Well, the classic scene wasn't a classic scene because the monsters didn't actually fight at the end.
That's my point.
No,
but they do fight. They come together for the final showdown in that scene.
Well, the characters do, the monsters don't.
Yeah, but that's what that scene is about. It is about the final confrontation between these two characters, right? And that's what
it's just when you say two monsters fight, that's not what happened.
Well, I mean, it's the same, to me, it's the same metaphorical thing that what happens when Godzilla fights Mothra at the end, except I don't care when Godzilla fights Mothra at the end. I care when these two characters fight at the end, and they don't even have to come to blows. One just grabs the other and throws them. And that's enough for me because I care about the emotional weight behind that action.
I get what you're saying. I think it's just the terminology is what's throwing me.
Right. When I say fight, you mean that someone has to throw a punch.
I mean, when you say when two monsters start fighting like Godzilla and Mothra, I picture two monsters fighting like Godzilla and Mothra. This is literally, and just so I want to explain this just for people. If you've been listening to this and you don't, this must be mind numbing because if you haven't seen the film. But basically, Anne Hathaway's character Gloria figures out that, if she actually goes to Seoul where the monsters are appearing, appearing, then she will appear in the hometown near the sandbox where they've been the entire time as the monster, and she can then have the power back to confront Oscar.
Right.
And then she literally, and again, at this moment, the movie itself kind of breaks its own rules because they're not supposed to be able to see what's going on, but she like guesses where he'd be standing based on like a thing and like grabs him and all this stuff. But again, whenever you try to logic with this film, especially, oh God, the flashbacks, it just is awful. But I just think the confrontation is great for me at the end. But again, I want to go back to CJ's point. Mm-hmm. About how everything is slow and monotonous, because I do agree with that. But for me, that slow, monotonous, repetitive garbage, which you'd be watching, and in a film not about something that when you experience it is slow and painful, monotonous and garbage, it would break it. But because it is about an experience like that, it just hit further home for me. It's so weird to be like, it doesn't work, so it works. I don't know.
The only before we give CJ the final word on this film, the only thing that I was kind of like, I thought was a little bit of a missed opportunity was like a little bit of a broader political context that they could have done with this film, where the actions of a few drunk Americans has like global ramifications halfway across the world that they're not even aware of, and they kind of make fun of, like Jason Sudeikis gets drunk and starts taunting the financial district of Seoul at one point. It kind of reminded me of like one of the best scenes in The Day After Tomorrow, that awful Roland Emmerich film where you're being chased by climate change and Americans are trying to cross the border to Mexico, and Mexico closes the border off, so people are having to jump the border in Mexico. I thought that was like kind of just a little sly political commentary that could have been made with this film in terms of like the role that America has in like global devastation, I guess, so to speak. The film doesn't really get into that, and I was kind of hoping that it would, but maybe it's implied anyway. CJ, I don't disagree with any point that you've made. I feel like this film worked for me for the reasons I've outlined, but go ahead and have have at it.
Oh, no. I mean, I think we've talked it to death. I think my point is my attitude and yours and Matt's. I think we've all got our own opinions on it. What didn't work for me worked for you guys. I think we all saw the same movie.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's just there. I feel that it wasn't executed well enough. Like, I think maybe the ideas are good, but it's just been badly brought to fruition. And I don't know, or to put it another way, I feel like you guys are making excuses for it a little bit. I think that because the ideas are interesting, you think that's kind of good enough. And I think the ideas might be interesting, but the movie that has resulted from the ideas is not worthy of them.
You know what? Sorry to interrupt, but I think you're absolutely right. And I think for me, the ideas are so interesting and so compelling that I'm not willing to overlook the problems that this film has, because it has many, many problems, but I'm willing to cheer a movie that is ambitious and falls, as opposed to a movie that is not ambitious and gets there.
And I disagree with both of you. I just think it's very interesting that this is the first film in a long time where I feel like its flaws, of which there are many, like CJ, I think I'm guilty of what you're describing a lot in things that I love. I don't think again, it's kind of a personal thing, but for this movie, it's not, because I can literally say with a straight face, if you're going into this for like a fully enjoyable film, I would say it's not. But if you're going in, but no, I'm serious. But if you're going in for a really interesting look at if you've never experienced sort of, addict behavior or dealing with someone close like that, and for whatever reason, if you're a weird, sick person that wants to experience that without experiencing it, this movie does it incredibly well, not only with its characters, but through all of its flaws that make you infuriated at it, much like you do in that situation. But again, it's so interesting, both Shahir and CJ, that like, we did all see the same movie,
and I think we all agree that
we agree. Like if we were going on a technical level, we've all said the exact same thing. Like as far as whatever, but it's the emotions behind it that whether it be because you really want a great idea to work, or history with subject matter, or whatever it is, or none of the above,
or shifting a genre sideways.
Sure, it's very interesting to me how it sort of hit us all very, very, very differently.
Yeah, it lost me in the second act. I got bored. I started to think about other things, and it obviously managed to hold you two. And that's kind of a fundamental difference.
Yeah.
Like, the movie lost my attention.
It held me kicking and screaming. I will say that it didn't actually hold me in a nice way. It held me in a very awkward way.
CJ,
and Matt, can I ask you? I want to recommend a film to you. Have you seen 2012 movie by James Ponsoldt called Smashed?
Yeah. No, I have not. I'll write that down.
Yeah, very good film.
Paul and Nick Offerman.
I'll write that down.
Yeah, film about that deals with alcoholism.
Brilliant, independent film about a young woman with alcoholism, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, when I want to feel like when I want to feel down again, I'll do that.
CJ, can I ask you a question? Would you watch another film from Nacho Vigalondo?
Oh yeah, I'm going to watch Time Crimes in the next couple of days.
If I hadn't recommended Time Crimes, would you on the basis of this film watch a future film from him?
No. I didn't think this film was well directed at all. That's I think its problem is its direction, because obviously, as I've said, I do think the ideas are interesting, and I'm happy to watch a film that switches gears halfway through and becomes something very different to what you think is going to be. And I'm absolutely happy to watch films about alcoholism, and I'm happy to watch films about domestic violence. I do think the execution of this film is poor. And just besides the other things I've said and we've said, I do think that those logic holes also contribute to its poorness. I think if you are going to run with this metaphor, I think all of that stuff that we're sort of blowing aside is really important, because it pulls you out of the film. If you're saying to yourself, hang on, why are those people still going back there? If you're saying to yourself, hang on, how did she figure out that she could go to Soul and Sand in that particular place and that would enable her to become a monster in the sandpit and grab him? If you're asking yourselves those questions, that's poor filmmaking.
I will disagree, but I'll hand it over to Matt to pull us out of the colossal hole that we've fallen down with the three of us fighting kaiju style over this movie.
Oh man, I call Mechagodzilla all day, every day. Well, this has been the only podcast about the film Colossal. CJ, thank you so much for coming on. When you are not literally being the embodiment of a battle halfway across the world like took place in this movie, where can folks find you?
Okay, so read my written reviews, including my written review of Colossal, at filmmafia.com.au. That's filmmafia, all one word, .com.au, and you can subscribe there for free. Join over 8,500 other subscribers. You'll get it delivered into your inbox. No ads, no hassle. Watch my web show, Watch This, on Skippy TV, SKIPI.tv, and listen to my podcast, Movie Land, which is hosted by ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Just look for Movie Land on iTunes. And if you look for the episode on The Salesman, you'll hear me discussing that with Shahir. And we totally agree the entire way through that one.
The Salesman!
And the weird thing is, I think we agree most of the time. This has been the first. But I enjoyed hearing your point of view on it. And I don't, it's not a case where I'm like disagreeing with you or thinking that you've lost the plot or anything. I just think we just have different opinions on this movie. Which is good. I agree. Now, let me throw up one other theory that some critics are throwing around about this movie that I don't ascribe to it. I think they are once again also giving it too much credit. But some people are saying that this movie is about not just male violence and male bullying, but specifically about male bullying within the nerd community and within the video game community, and about Gamergate. Now I'm one of those people that have heard the term Gamergate and thought about it a little bit. And I think specifically that the scene that you're referring to is when Anne Hathaway says to Jason Sudeikis, "You really hate yourself, don't you? You can't stand who you are inside, and it's tearing you apart." Would I be wrong in saying it's that scene that kind of is the anchor to hold on to that theory? Well, I guess just the idea that
I guess Gamergate represents on a larger level the concept of males who refuse to let females into the nerd community, whether it's video games or stand-up comedy or sci-fi films or whatever. And so they express it by trollism. And, whether it's the girl who, whether it's the all-female Ghostbusters or whatever, there are these male trolls that band together and become deliberately very sexist and misogynistic and basically buoy each other up in doing so. And some people see that this movie is actually aimed at them.
I don't think
Jason Sudeikis represents them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, if that is the case, I think that's people bringing stuff to the table that's already been set. I don't think that this film sort of set out to sort of be that. I think it deals with a lot of psychological and socioeconomical, I guess, tropes that sort of interconnect. But I don't think. I think it's broader than that. I think maybe the fact that it is mixed with the Kaiju movie, I could, people like, oh, that's why it's mixed like that. Like, no, I just think he tried to do something interesting, whether he passed or failed.
I think that's a good example of the Roland Barthes essay, The Death of the Author, which we talked about briefly on one of our episodes a while back, which is the ability for the audience to infer what they believe to be true on a film, as opposed to what the film actually does is not as important. I don't think that the film is dealing in that way, but I think you could certainly see elements of this sort of it's not even a recent phenomenon, but the idea of the troll as a character. The internet troll, you could see it in the US election. You go to the Donald on Reddit or something like that. You could see that same metaphor playing out, but I don't necessarily believe that.
They're just doing it for the lulz, guys.
Yeah,
just being horrible human beings for the lulz. Shahir, we got to wrap this up. I don't want to keep. CJ hasn't eaten breakfast yet.
That's true. CJ hasn't eaten breakfast.
We've been making him recount this film he hates for an hour.
CJ, is it going to be Weet-Bix or Vegemite? Which are the two?
Oh, of those two, I would always have Vegemite. Quite a flag.
I'm not a true Kiwi because I'm not a fan of Vegemite or Marmite.
Shahir, when you're not quizzing CJ on his breakfast preferences, where can folks find you?
You can find me at www.shahirdaud.com. That's SHAHIRDAUD. I am not a whore for Marmite, but Vegemite on occasion. Vegemite with cheese sometimes.
You can find me at Emperor MSK on Twitter, Skeletor, the number 4 PREZ on Instagram. Got a great dance from a wedding on there if you want to check that out. And you can find me in my life and works at Matthew Kroll. That's MATTKAGWKROL.com. Also, leave us a review on iTunes if you like us. We love stars. Also, you can always find all of our stuff on our website. That's onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. CJ, more and more we have to make these sort of excuses in our own timelines and genres to really make sure we are the only podcast about movies when we have people with other movie podcasts on the show. So let's see, how would we make this work in our current timeline?
Well, I think here's the way I would do it is that at 8:05 every day, we start a podcast, which starts an inverse podcast in Australia, which is a direct parallel of us, because we've already established that CJ is my brother from another mother in a cinematic point of view.
Sure. CJ, any ideas? I didn't like Shahir's.
No, I don't know.
We'll figure it out one day.
You called yourself the only podcast about movies, and then you boxed yourself into a corner at that moment.
Oh, no. I will logic my way out of this, sir, one day. Anyway, guys, this has been an awesome discussion. Thank you, CJ.
I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much. And we will see you next week. I want to go out now with our biggest kaiju roars we can do, and we'll end with CJ. Shahir, go first. Yeah, that was some metal. We'll see you next week.